Despite their recent struggles, the Toronto Raptors have proven this season that when they are healthy, they are a force to be reckoned with. So in today's video, I'm going to explain to you why the Toronto Raptors are still a nightmare playoff matchup that nobody wants to face. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. We do at least 3 to 4 of these every single week, so if you want to stay up to date with that great content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help us on a road to 9,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. But our video today, we want to talk about the possibility of a Raptors team in the playoffs and why they are going to be a very difficult matchup for whoever they come across in the first round. And I understand that the last few games have just not really been good for the Raptors. In fact, they've been really bad for the Raptors, losing to the two worst teams record-wise in the NBA, along with, a pretty convincing loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are just ahead of us in the Eastern Conference standings. But, there's been so many great things about the Raptors this season. They have a pretty good record considering their team and considering the expectation of them coming into the season, and 3 bad games in a row. We've had a lot of those throughout the season. That's not just going to all of a sudden flip my opinion on this entire organization. The Toronto Raptors, when they are healthy, are a very good team. They had a recent 8-game winning streak to validate that. It's about a month ago where that happened now, but that's still decently fresh in the memory, and it's going to be fresh in the memory of some of the really good teams that we beat along the way. We've had success against some of the better teams in the NBA this season. I say we've had success really against any team in the NBA this season except for the Detroit Pistons. Fortunately, if we get into a playoff series, we don't have to come up against the Detroit Pistons. The teams we can come up against are teams like, the Miami Heat, who, we actually have had decent success against this season. We've lost them, but we've also beaten them, and every game we've had against them, we have played well. And this Raptors team is a very strange team that seems to play down to its opponent, like the Pistons, like the Magic, where they drop their level to that of the opposition, but consequently they really rise up and they really exceed their current level to play up to more difficult opponents. Proof of that could be the Miami Heat game. Proof of that could be our games against the Milwaukee Bucks, who we've beaten every time we faced them across this season. But nonetheless, the Toronto Raptors are currently in a playing position. So why should they be a nightmare playoff matchup for any team they come up against? Now, I'm not suggesting the Raptors are going to be like one of the best teams in the playoffs. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm saying that from a matchup standpoint, they are not going to be a fun team to play against, and that's not going to be a team you want to face in the playoffs. The first thing the Raptors have to do, is make the playoffs. I struggle to see them getting out of that playing position and moving into a top 6 in the Eastern Conference. Entirely possible. They're not that far off of that position, but I just can't really see it happening the way the Boston Celtics are continuing to improve, the way the Brooklyn Nets are going to be once they get back Kevin Durant, and, maybe if Ben Simmons returns during the regular season. I feel like that team has a possibility to just take over that spot as well. But regardless of that, the Raptors, if they get to that playoffs, they get to the playoffs, they win through the play-in tournament and get into a playoff position. That is not going to be a fun team to come up against in the first round. And the reason for that is the Raptors in the regular season, part of their struggles, or one of the biggest struggles for their team is, there's 2 big ones. I would say, first of all, it's the lack of depth. Second of all, it's the lack of a true center. But in the playoffs, both of those things become less and less relevant. A lot of true centers, as they get into the playoffs, find themselves struggling to really make that true impact. If we go back to last season, there obviously are going to be centers who dominate, but there are going to be some centers who falter. Let's take Rudy Gobert, who got played off the court in a series against the Clippers where he just really couldn't make an impact. He struggled to make that impact. A lot of times, teams typically go small ball as they get into playoff settings. They need to have that switchability on the offensive end and the defensive end. The Raptors, really good at doing that. They don't even have a true center on their roster. Obviously, I would love to have one, but it becomes less of a necessity as we get to the playoffs. Not saying it isn't a necessity at all. I'm just saying that it becomes less of a necessity. You can kind of escape with it because Raptors typically in the playoffs, last time they were there, as they got into fourth quarter and overtime situations, they didn't really use any big at all. They just went with the switchability that the team can offer with the small ball approach. That is what they are best at going throughout the season. And the second thing is the depth of the team. The depth is struggling, but as we get into the playoffs, you don't really need to use your depth as much. In fact, every team in the league is going to start to load up on their starters, what the Raptors have been doing all season, no doubt, and maybe some fatigue may come into play. But nonetheless, the Raptors with those 5 starters, if they are healthy in Fred, Gary Trent, Anunoby, Siakam, and Barnes, if they've got those 5 guys healthy, that is one of the better starting 5s in the NBA. I'm not suggesting that the bench backs it up very well, but that is definitely one of the better starting 5s in the NBA. And that's going to be a difficult 5 to consistently play against all throughout the playoffs. The Raptors, I expect in a playoff series by, let's just say the series goes 7 games, which it probably wouldn't if the Raptors are in the first round. I see it maybe being 6, depending on our opposition. And I'm not suggesting the Raptors win that series either. But playing against those 5 guys, the Raptors by game 5 or 6 probably go with a tight 7-man rotation. Those guys get to load up on minutes, and there are a lot of real game changers in that starting 5. Siakam, especially the all-star Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent, who I'm expecting to bust out of this funk very soon. You've got Scotty Barnes, who can go off for 20 to 30 points in any specific game. And I mean, you can even talk about OG Anunoby, the things he can do, and a proven big shot hitter in those playoff situations. He's got that big one against the Celtics that we can go back to. So very difficult starting 5 to play against consistently. And how these playoff situations go, I would say that typically in a playoff situation, the team that has the best player in the series wins the series. More often than not, that is what happens. So if the Raptors come up against the Milwaukee Bucks, let's say, well, we got a problem because we got to defend Giannis. Can we do that over a 7-game series? I don't think so. But let's say we come up against the Chicago Bulls. Let's say we come up against the Miami Heat, which is entirely possible. I would say in those settings, there is a potential for Pascal Siakam because he's been operating at an all-NBA level for quite some time now, the last few games. I mean, even against Orlando, he was fantastic despite the team that struggled. He's been operating at an all-NBA level. There's potential for him to be the best player in either of those series. The Bulls obviously have LaVine and they have DeRozan. Both of them are unproven in playoff situations. You go to the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, very proven in the playoffs. He's had a lot of struggles recently, and his shooting statistics have just been quite abysmal, to be honest. So if we can be firing all cylinders with that starting 5, and Pascal Siakam is really taking over, and obviously, he's had a really good playoff run, he's had a really bad playoff run. So, what Siakam are we going to get? That is a very valid question, but there is definite significant talent with this team. Not to mention the way the Raptors can play defense and how frustrating that can be for opposition superstars, opposition stars. To this day, Jason Tatum says that the best defender he's ever come up against isn't a specific player. It's the Toronto Raptors in that playoff series. We went 7 games with the Boston Celtics in the 2020 playoffs, and even without Pascal Siakam playing very well, the Raptors very well could have snatched that game 7 away from Boston. It was a very marginal victory for the Boston Celtics there. And to this day, even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, Jason Tatum was talking about how great that Toronto Raptors team is at defending. We've got a little bit of a different team now, no question, but still the same mind in charge of orchestrating that defense is still a lot of those same players, Siakam, VanVleet, Anunoby, and Nick Nurse directing all of those things happening. So Nick Nurse does a great job typically of finding a way to just take a little bit out of the game for the opposition superstar. He just finds a way to deter them enough to make other players beat them. That's what the Raptors have typically been known for doing. So I expect them in playoff series to really do that. And like I said earlier, a lot of the times the team with the best player is the team that wins the series. So I'm not saying the Raptors are going to get out of the first round as like a 7 or 8 seed. They have to get to the playoffs first of all. But I'm saying once they get there, playing against that starting 5 for extended periods of time, playing against a team like that has the length, the athleticism, the switchability, and being known for having such great defensive chemistry and using that to their advantage, taking away what the opposition star on the other team can do, it's going to be a very frustrating playoff series for any team that comes up against them. That's not going to be a team you're going to want to play in the first round of the Eastern Conference. I would say with a considerable degree of certainty that other teams are going to be looking at the Charlotte Hornets and probably even the Atlanta Hawks as a team they would want to face before they face the Toronto Raptors. The Brooklyn Nets, well, that's a completely different story. I'm taking the Raptors over the Brooklyn Nets when they're fully healthy. I mean, Kevin Durant is just a bad man out on the court. And I'm not suggesting the Raptors win any of these series. Let's say we come up against Philly. I don't expect us to win that series. Milwaukee, I can't really, we have a great track record against Milwaukee, but Giannis is there and we see what Giannis can do in playoffs. Middleton is a proven big shot hitter in the playoff situations. Drew Holiday, a great defender when it comes to those playoff situations, but Miami and Chicago as well. I can't see us winning this series, but I see the Raptors being extremely competitive in some of these matchups and making it very difficult and really going in with the mindset that they have the ability and they have the talent to shock the other team in that series and come out and move into the second round. Now, the Raptors, I consider they're sealing the second round, but this team has been somebody who has the ability to surprise, the ability to go beyond their expectations. So the main thing is going to be making those playoffs. Once we get there, I'm going to be happy that we got there no matter what, but we can just see what happens. I'm suggesting to you, they have the talent and they have the capabilities to make some waves in the playoffs and cause an upset and just stir up the other team. Is it more likely than not? No, I wouldn't say so, but the capability and the possibility is there. So what do you guys think of this video? I know a lot of opposition fans, maybe even Raptors fans, will say I'm in over my head and there's just no possible way the Raptors get out of the first round of the playoffs, but I consider it a legitimate possibility. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. Make sure to like the video if you did enjoy and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. Help me on my road to 9,000 subscribers and I'll see you again next time for another video.